Butterfly's Wings.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Artists of the Night. Today I am joined by musician Michael Doherty. Michael is a very accomplished musician. He primarily focuses on the art of the shakuhachi flutes. We will be kind of asking him some questions about the music that he makes and ask him to maybe delve into the wonderful world of shakuhachi with us a little bit. So Michael, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. It's
Good to be here.
Glad to have you here. Michael, I guess kind of the first question I have for you is, how did you get involved in music? What's your story with music?
It's a long story. It starts, I think the first instrument I played was the recorder in grade school, right? But wasn't really serious about it until I started playing drums in 8th grade. And then by 10th grade, I was in a progressive rock band in high school with some guys that I grew up with. So that's when I started getting serious, then also writing music at the same time, composing. And I was actually more serious about the composition than I was about the rock.
So when did the shakuhachi enter your life?
So when I graduated from college, I wanted to try my hand at a music career composition, basically. And I didn't really care about making a lot of money, but just being able to write. And I was working at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, which sustained me while I wrote. And around 2003, 2004, I started getting interested in silence in music. And this may have been an influence of John Cage, the American composer. And I wanted to consider silence in the same vein as other elements, rhythm, harmony, melody, those types of things. And so I was looking around for where has it been done before? Where has silence been considered a serious part of music? And it's dotted here and there in the West, but a friend of mine saw a book that has a chapter on Japanese aesthetics, and specifically shakuhachi music, and specifically hankyoku, which is the old Middle Age period, Edo period of Japan. Shakuhachi music, that's the solo music, and really what is at the heart of shakuhachi, that they use silence in some way in that music. So I decided to start investigating that. And when studying Japanese art, it's not an intellectual pursuit. It's not the way that goes. It's really a practice, and you learn it by doing it, and learning from your teacher and emulating the teacher, then eventually standing out on your own. And so I had to do it. And so I found teachers, and it snowballed, and shakuhachi took over composition, it took over performing, which was the rock part of my musical experience earlier. Really everything.
So would you say that there is a kind of a meditative aspect to it then? It's kind of implicitly tied into it?
There is. I think it depends on the player. It also depends on the listener. Shakuhachi has been tied to Zen Buddhism since the Edo period. A lot of the shakuhachi history is legend. We don't really necessarily know, but we do know that shakuhachi music came from temples in Japan. So you'd have perhaps even the same piece played at different temples and becomes different over time. And so you have songs that have the same title that are pretty different. But you imagine shakuhachi playing, flute playing in a Zen temple. It's related to meditation. That's what Zen is about. in its core. So the pieces that come down to us, although they've changed over time, do have a tie to Zen. They have a tie to meditation, but how things are performed today is a little bit different. I think things were a lot more simple in the Edo period. And today, a lot of the pieces that are played are performance pieces, and a lot of the approach is performance rather than meditation. Shakuhachi, I think, is one of the few instruments that has this dual purpose of being a tool for spiritual awakening as well as a musical instrument. But those traditions both still exist within the shakuhachi. And depending upon the player, you would focus on one or the other in different mixtures. So the answer is yes.
So I think let's go ahead and take this opportunity to give a listen to Michael's performance of this piece. This is every piece that we're going to listen to here was recorded at the Knights of Columbus Hall. It was a really interesting recording session, Michael. We had to go through the whole building and really try to eliminate all of the sound to try to achieve that silence, which I thought was really interesting. It's funny how silence is almost relative, because there was okay, it's silent here, but then once you turn off all the heaters and everything, you're okay, no, it's really silent. So right. It's almost your brain filters out those the ambient white noise and the background noise, and then when you really start paying attention and really start listening, then you realize how not silent it is.
Right.
All right, cool. Sonia.
So for these pieces, there's a couple different levels of meaning, I think. And for Sonia, the title means this Sonia. There are various Sonias. This Sonia is 3 valleys. And to be honest, we don't really know what that referred to. A lot of the pieces refer to nature or some element of nature. There are 3 high points in the piece, so there's 3 peaks. And whether that means there's 3 valleys, or I think they maybe miscounted, there's actually 4 if there are 3 peaks. I don't know. But it could mean 3 jewels in Buddhism. It could be an allusion to Buddha, Sangha, and the Dharma. Who knows? For now, it's just 3 valleys, and that's the piece. So the other levels of meaning are when you get into the piece. there can be, within pieces, there are allusions to other pieces. There are elements that are more organic and nature-like, and elements that are more chant-like. A lot of shakuhachi music seems to be based on chant. In Japan, it's shomyo, which is basically monks chanting sutras, that kind of thing. So, and then also I think once you embody a piece, it has meaning. There's some intrinsic something about that piece.
So maybe can you maybe kind of illustrate or even show us by example kind of what the difference between the shakuhachi flute is and maybe what a traditional Western orchestral flute might be?
Yeah, so orchestral flute, the silver flute's a transverse flute, so you play it by blowing across the mouthpiece, and the mouthpiece is really a hole on one side of it, and then you have other holes that are keys that are basically on and off, more or less. Like it's like a keyboard. You're either playing a note on that pitch or you're not. It's really, you can bend it a little bit on a flute, but it's not designed for that. So in contrast to that, the shakuhachi is played vertically. And so the hole this would basically be like the hole in the transverse flute that you're blowing through, except for in shakuhachi. It's at the top of the flute. So you have 4 holes in the front, you have 1 in the back. It's a bamboo tube basically with 5 holes is what it is.
Okay.
And so part of the difference that makes shakuhachi wonderful and also very difficult is that a lot of the tone, color, timbre, as it's called, and pitches, you can change a lot. There's a lot. You're heavily invested in the flute, and more so than a silver flute, where you have less options. I'll show you. So, in terms of the pitch, depends on how close your lips are to the blowing edge. You see, there's an inlay of a buffalo horn, water buffalo horn. So you hit that with your breath, a certain embouchure, and you can do a lot. You can change the timbre, like I said. You can have a dense note. You can have a really porous, breathy note. And then you can mix them in between too, and have different shades of really breathy, really dense. And then every flute's a little bit different, so you get different kinds of sounds. In the 20th century, as things westernized, the standard shakuhachi got tuned, it got louder. This is basically like a loud concert instrument. But some of these other ones are a different kind of shakuhachi. They're ji-nashi, which means without ji. It doesn't have the paste inside that refines the bore. This is a ji-adi, meaning with ji. So the ji-nashi have a more organic sound, are quieter. It's a different kind of experience.
So let's go ahead and take this opportunity to listen to Hansarabe.
Yeah, Hansarabe is traditionally thought of as a training piece, but there really isn't any learning pieces. They're all just like difficult. They're challenging.
Hmm.
But this would be like a warm-up piece, I guess. And Hansarabe could be translated. Shirabe is melody or song, and hon uh, could mean uh, one's own song, one's own melody. It could also mean original, mean kind of connoting origin melody. So the idea behind this piece, and it's pretty simple, and it has this intuitive quality to it, where the melody just kind of falls out of the notes. And the idea for me is really putting yourself into this piece. It's really important in the lineage of Watazumi specifically, where this is something that you'd never done learning this piece. You've never done learning any of the pieces, but this piece is pretty important in recognizing your own voice in shakuhachi.
So I understand, Michael, that you craft a lot of your own instruments. A lot of the shakuhachis were handmade by you.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, I started making woodwind instruments right before I started playing shakuhachi, so it made sense that I would start making flutes when I started playing. And the first few didn't turn out, and it's not something that you can learn like through a manual. There is a manual. There are manuals. There are different things that are shared, but you really don't know until you actually do it, and you build a body of knowledge around doing it. Very artisan approach. Like there's an intuition about it, and just in talking with other makers, you get some ideas about what a certain flute might need, that kind of thing. Anyway, so the big flute that I had played earlier, and I play it in the KCH video, is a 2.9 shakuhachi. I mean, it's basically 2.9 feet, it's almost 3 feet. Made this one, and it was pretty good. I originally started thinking about making them to sell, but I fall in love with them first, so I haven't sold very many. But these two, like these three, I've made those, the Jinashi flutes. And so I brought these. This is what a calm would look like when you buy it from somebody who's already designated as something for shakuhachi, right? They've cut a lot of the root structure off, which is what it looks like decoration, but it's actually the root on the bottom of the flutes. So that's this, shaving it off, cutting it. So this is what a calm might look like if you bought one online. That's Madake bamboo. It's a certain kind of bamboo for shakuhachi. This one will probably be a 3.1 or 3.0 shakuhachi. So it's the root's been cared for. This needs to be polished, but then I haven't cut into it at all. It's still closed up. And in bamboo, it's mainly empty, except for at these nodes where there's a membrane that comes across. So this is a neat project coming up for me that I'm excited about. So there's different ways of going about it, but you basically cut through the membranes and decide where the holes are going to go based upon the length of the flute. There's certain formulas that you can use, and start shaping it up. Start shaping the mouthpiece, which I really think as a wood sculpture. And if you mess that up, then
That's that.
You can make a shorter flute, but that's pretty much it. So you try to, with jinashi, which is what I make, try to not take away too much from the flute, because the idea is that it's organic and you're not adding anything to it. It's just its natural form. So that's the aesthetic of jinashi.
Let's go ahead and take this opportunity and listen to Yamagoi.
Yamagoi is a fairly difficult piece to play. There's a lot of elements to it. There's subtlety, but also lots of power to it. It means mountain crossing. So, like Sonia, Yamagoi, I mean, these pieces I've chose because I love mountains too. Love living in the mountains and being close to them. But so Yamagoi also kind of denotes the sense of doing something, accomplishing something, but maybe it wasn't perfect. So it was challenging. You accomplished it, but it wasn't exactly the way it was intended to be. Which, I mean, that's shakuhachi playing in general. And so for a lot of these pieces, players, I think, I know that I do, look at it in terms of what does that mean for me? They're life lessons, a lot of these pieces. Hansarabe, having your own voice. What does that mean, being authentic? And then this piece would be just that life is a struggle at times and can be really difficult. And although things aren't always done perfectly, things aren't perfect, it's still this life, it's still this powerful experience. So that's what Yamagoi means to me.
Michael, could you show us kind of what the notation or what is, I guess, what a shakuhachi score looks like?
Sure. So this is one that I've worked on. This is a piece I've been playing for a number of years, and so you can see that the black, the printed part is the original score, and then I don't know if you can tell, there's all kinds of pencil marks. So that's the stuff that I either heard, that I learned from my teachers that I wanted to add to it, things that aren't written. There's a lot that you get from the tradition that isn't on the score. And or stuff that I heard or stuff that I liked. So yeah. So the title is here, Sonia, and then the first note is actually here. Then you read it down and over that way. So this is ro, su. You play the note, and then a small ro, and then su. Then you play su, and then there's called a su meri, which is where you tilt your chin down to lower the note. And then, so for traditional Hankyoku practice, this is a breath mark, and so this would be one breath. So there's no tempo markings on these traditional scores either. You get that sense of tempo from your teacher, and yeah, so is there something you assimilate from the experience of learning it?
One of the earlier parts of this conversation, we spoke about silence and the importance of silence in music, and also kind of how you came to shakuhachi was kind of seeking that silence through music. Can you maybe speak on that, and how have you found that? Has that been part of in your shakuhachi journey? Where does that sit?
It's interesting because the silence that I was thinking of is not the silence that I found in shakuhachi. So the silence I was thinking of back when before I started studying shakuhachi, was this objective state of things being quiet, like no time and space in between notes, like within a rhythm, right? So there's a school, contemporary composition called Wandelweiser, and they use silence a lot. I really appreciate what they're doing. And what shakuhachi is doing is really different. And so, yeah, there are different kinds of silence in shakuhachi. We're talking about the meditative quality of being quiet. That's really important. Being able to be in a state where you're able to perform the piece, and the piece is able to live on its own. That's one kind of silence. And then within traditional shakuhachi, you have silence in between the phrases. And a lot of that, there's a little bit of wiggle room for each player in terms of how long does it take to breathe in. That's part of the quietness. But in Japan, there's a word, ma, M-A, ma, that basically, that is their sense of silence. That's how they express it. And it really is distance between events or notes, phrases. It could be like, if you think of a Zen garden, a rock garden, you have stones placed in certain relationship. And the reason that speaks so well is because there's a good sense of ma, space in between the stones. And so in shakuhachi land, yeah, it's not spoken about, but you have that sense of ma and the sense of tension and space. And so that's more of what, in my experience, silence is in shakuhachi music, is ma, is space between events.
Michael, thank you very, very much for this conversation today. I've learned a ton about the shakuhachi flute. Actually, through this whole process of recording you, listening to your music, talking about it, I have personally gained a much deeper understanding and appreciation and curiosity about shakuhachi. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, to share it, and that people will be listening to shakuhachi. I hope it inspires people to play or investigate more about it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I hope for those of you who are watching this, I hope you've maybe gained a little more insight into the shakuhachi as well. And we do have Mr. Doherty's social media links here included. So if you'd like to reach out to him and actually listen to some of his music, there's plenty of it available. There is a companion piece to this video that will feature an entire performance of Mr. Doherty, and that will be up on the PPLD website as well. So you are more than welcome to come check that out and listen to that whenever you would like to. And again, thank you, Michael, and thank you to all of you who are watching and out there and listening. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.